All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the December 14th, 2021 meeting of the Milton Conservation Commission. The commission is appointed by the Select Board to implement the rules and regulations of the State Wetlands Protection Act and the Town of Milton Wetland Bylaws. As a matter of formality, we two things. We introduce ourselves, and secondly, we invite everyone to speak, ask questions, make comments, but after they've introduced themselves as well as part of the open meeting law. My name is John Kiernan. Good evening. Steve, do you want to go?
Steve Ivas, Conservation Agent.
Arthur
Doyle, Conservation Commission.
Hans
Finlingen.
Todd
Hamilton, Milton Conservation.
and Wendy.
Hi, I'm Wendy Garpo, one of the commissioners.
Perfect. Thank you. And hopefully we may be joined by Ingrid Beatty as well, but we have a quorum and we can proceed. First on the agenda is number one, modification of order of conditions at 52 Hemlock Drive. Is there a presenter for that?
Yes,
Steve, do you know anything about this?
I don't know. I have not heard it from anyone. I do have some information though I've put on the screen.
If you could, and just kind of walk us through, we've got it in our packet, but you may want to address what the issue is. This is a matter that we did issue an order of conditions, and the date is, how long ago was that?
Let's see. Let's go down to the order. 2020, November 2020.
All right. And that is one that they wanted to build an addition on the opposite side of the house. So if you're facing the house from the street, it would be on the right-hand back. No, that's the new one. The one that we approved before was on the right as you're looking in from Hemlock Drive.
That's right. There we go, right here. This
Exactly correct. Right.
Right in here. Yep.
And that's the one that we had asked for a revision because their original plan had a cantilever deck going out over the 25-foot, or that is into the 25-foot non-disturbance zone. And at our request, they pulled that back, gave a redesign, and we approved it. And again, back in 2020. So this is a proposed request for a revision. Can you describe that, Steve?
Yes, as I understand, they're looking for a revision on the other side of the house. Okay, along the drainage easement that goes from the street down into a small stream. And let me just show you the location of that request. They'd like to do a 4-foot deck extension in this area next to the house. Then there's an offset, 5-foot offset to the drain, as I understand. And it's right in this little area right here. I guess it's to be able to get around the house to the other deck. It's to the rear of the house itself, right here. That's about all I have on it myself. We don't have.
I'm concerned that there's no applicant here asking for this. I mean, we have it by submission, but the custom and practice certainly is to have an applicant request this change.
Right, to make sure that I gave the correct detail.
Yeah, have you had any contact with a homeowner?
A month ago I did, but that's about all.
I guess for the public's benefit, there has been a request to the building department to build a deck in 5-foot proximity to the drainage easement, which is a town easement. And that, according to the papers here, has been approved by the Milton Town Engineer.
That's correct.
But I do think we need an applicant to make this petition rather than us making the petition for the applicant.
Right.
I have forgotten the name of the fellow because he was quite courteous and respectful and worked cooperatively with us when we approved a year ago.
It's Mr. Sinkovich,
Yes.
right?
Wow.
And there's
Maybe what we could do is, if we have any site visit for anything tonight, we might be able to reschedule this for that. It doesn't sound like they're in any rush with a non-appearance here tonight. So maybe what we could do is continue it and request that the applicant show up on his own behalf at a site visit, if we have a site visit. And I'm just kind of looking ahead. We have a request for compliance at 196 Ridgewood. Yeah, Steve, in your opinion, does that require a view?
I don't believe it requires a review. It would be nice to just have you take a look at it just to see what they did, which is everything they did was very good.
All right, I don't mean to jump ahead. I'm just trying to anticipate if we're going to have a site walk. Anyway, if we do have a site walk, then we could put this on earlier rather than kicking it a month.
Right.
Does anybody, I would like to have an applicant present to request our assent to this revision. Does anybody have a different view of that we should invite him or her to attend?
Want to see if we can get a telephone number for a minute while we go on to the next one, John? I'd be happy to try and hunt that down.
That would be great, because we've done that in the past, and if they can get on board, it might be just an oversight on their part. So Arthur, if you do that, I think that would be great. It would be helpful to the applicant. And in the meantime, we can defer that and go to number 2 on the agenda, which is request for certificate of compliance from 196 Ridgewood Road. Do we have an applicant for that request? Are we in the same, it sounds like we're in the same boat. The first request. Steve, do you have any information on the applicant? I know you've had some discussions.
I was there about a week ago. The applicant is, let me think. I spoke to a woman named Danielle Dunn in Ridgewood on site. So
And do you have any understanding or knowledge that they knew that the application was going to be considered tonight?
You know, I don't know. I
don't know. For the benefit of the commission and the benefit of the public, can you describe what the proposal is? This is a request for a certificate of compliance.
Yes, a couple of years ago, we approved a swimming pool installation, 20 by 40 here. I don't know if you can see I'm sharing the screen. Can you see it on the screen?
Yes, we can. I can.
Good.
I can.
Fine, thank you. In any case, there was a pool house, et cetera, et cetera. And there were a lot of plants to be put in. I think there were 25 plants to be put in, and they placed 61. And so the wetlands are in this area. Let me think. This is the 25, is that correct? No, that's the wetland line. Here's the wetland line. This was done by Ecotech, wetland line. Here, the green line and the green line. 25-foot line is here and here on this side. And the little red dots are either trees or shrubs that have been planted and that are on site.
They put quite a bit in.
Yes, they did. I think they did a nice job, and it would be good for the commission to at least see it, perhaps, at some point. It wouldn't be a long stop at all.
This is the one where there was concern, courteous concern, I'll call it, from the next door neighbor. So if you're driving along Ridgewood, this is the second to last house on the left. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
And the last house neighbor was concerned with the location of the pool pump.
Yes.
Because he was concerned with noise, and we talked about a particular condition that there would be a sound baffle I think we asked them to move the pump away from the neighbor, which they did. Of course,
Yeah.
it gets a little bit closer to the other neighbor, but there's still, I think there's additional space because originally it was going to be quite close to as we're looking at this map, the neighbor to the right.
Yes, that's correct. Right in this area. It was going to be right here.
All right.
And it's not there now.
Okay. And with respect, this is the one that I think the woman that owned the residence had a permit for a childcare center.
That's
And
correct.
there's a paved patio area where the kids were going to play, and we were quite concerned with the fencing there to make sure that the children were not exposed to an open pool. She was aware of that, and I think she agreed to make sure that the appropriate fencing was in there to protect the kids. And it's part of it's a town bylaw anyway.
And an appropriate fencing gate as well. I had to lift up I remember I lifted up a lock for this particular gate, which I thought was interesting. So children couldn't have been able to get to, it was probably 4 feet or 5 feet high anyway. And then you had to lift something up. So they would have had to have a 6-foot extension. Would have to be a large child in order to get through the gate. And there was a provision for locking because there was a lock that she unlocked to get me through the gate as well. So I thought that was excellent.
All right, now I am looking at the letter from Jim Burke.
Yes.
And this is a request for a certificate of compliance. And in the letter dated November 24, 2021, Jim Burke says, I hereby certify that the proposed project was constructed in substantial compliance with the issued order of conditions and approved site plan on record with the Milton Conservation Commission under DEP file number 046-0550 with the following exceptions. I want everyone to listen to the exceptions. 1, 9 plantings, the planting area A are located outside area A and inside the 25-foot non-disturbed buffer. Number 2, the total proposed plantings for area A is counted as 21, not the 25 as approved. Number 3, the total proposed plantings for area B is 61, exceeding the approved amount of 25. Number 4, a temporary deer fence is added to protect the plantings from damage.
Mhm.
Number 5, the retaining wall was slightly relocated to accommodate the existing slope and provide improved aesthetics for the pool area. It is our belief that these exceptions do not have any negative effect upon the adjacent BBW, related 100-foot buffer, or the 25-foot non-disturbed. It is our belief that the project is well-established and stabilized and a certificate of compliance can be issued by the commission, and he attaches an as-built plan. I think there are enough differences. I'm really concerned with the retaining wall was changed, relocated to accommodate the slope and provide aesthetics. I think it would be appropriate for a site visit on this. I mean, there are 5 variances listed. Although I acknowledge that one of them, they exceeded the approved number of plantings by 25, and another one indicates that they are 4 short, but I think the net is an increase by a lot. Do you know, Steve, how long the planting's been in place? I mean, have we gone by the 2 growing seasons?
Yes, we have. I think
Okay.
she said they were in place. This is the 3rd year they've been there. That's what she told me.
Okay. I am looking at the
Let's see if we look
date
at,
of the order conditions.
and is it on this request? It's 19 actually, so it's got to be over only 2 years. 4/09/19. 2 years.
I think the performance standard, we always use the performance standard as 2 years, but I think in fact, the regulation says 2 growing seasons.
That's correct. So we have a order of conditions issued 4/09/2019. So if they put it in the same year, it would be 2 growing seasons, 19
Right.
and 20, actually 21. 2.5 growing seasons, possibly 3, depending on when they put the plants in.
And I don't know if the deer fence is, good or bad or indifferent. I understand that it says here temporary to protect the plantings from damage. I understand that, but I suspect it might not be a temporary deer fence. It might be a long-lasting deer fence, which may be appropriate as well. But
I don't
it's not
remember
on the plan.
seeing the deer fence up, John, when I saw it. Okay. I don't believe it was up.
Well, the date of this plan is November 24th. So it's just a couple of weeks ago. 2021, November 24th, 2021. And you saw it within the last week?
Yes.
All right. All right, I don't mean to be a nitpicker because it looks like a net increase in the number of plantings, but I am concerned with the change in the retaining wall for aesthetic purposes. I don't know if it creates an additional grade change that was not approved. I can't tell.
Do we have the other plan to put on the computer, the original filing?
I don't believe I do. Let me see if I can find it, Todd.
Does the plan indicate where the retaining wall was modified?
No, it doesn't. This plan does not. This plan does not. Let me see if I have the other plan. Let's see. 196. One moment. Okay, let's take a look at this one. There was nothing in that file. That's interesting. Okay. Hang on. Let me just go back and see if I can find the other plan. Huh. Tree and shrub proposal. Let's take a look at that. Go check. There's an old plan.
So it looks like the retaining wall on this one's further out.
I can't, you're going to have to help me see with your cursor because I can't tell where that retaining wall is.
It's in the red, isn't it?
Well, I am not sure because I remember talking about the retaining wall was on this side of the pool.
Yeah, that's right, because there's a drop off there from the adjoining property.
Right.
So
And
I thought that's where it was going.
It's under that cloud, isn't it?
Well, I'm not sure. Area B is the cloud for the plantings. Okay. So let's see. There's nothing. Planting plan sketch. Yeah, this is a planting plan sketch. So I did not see a retaining wall on this side. I just saw a slope.
Right.
Okay, that's what I saw on that side. Wendy, did you get out there to take a look at it?
No, I didn't. But I don't see a retaining wall on this plan, but I did see it on the one that was presented earlier.
Well, really?
Yes. Yeah, pretty significant one.
Where is it?
Underneath cloud B. Close to the house. At least I thought that's what I.
Well, the only one I see is the one that says retain. Go back down a little bit, Steve. Next to the pool house is a stone retaining. That's all I see.
Exactly. This is sort of a stone retaining wall here.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, wait a second. There's another one here. Yeah, there's another one here, but I don't think we were talking about that. We were talking about
Okay.
one literally adjacent.
That's outside the buffer zone anyway, Steve.
That's exactly correct. Right. Yeah, we were talking, Todd, when we first looked at this a couple of years ago, we were talking, right, there was a proposed retaining wall right in this area under planting area B, I think it is.
They might have been able to grade it without it. It's obvious.
That's what it looked like to me on the when I went to the site. Okay.
Yeah.
Wouldn't
Well,
be
what does
better
that do to the grading in the back? Why is there a retaining wall in the back?
That's a small stone retaining wall here. That's a one stone, I think.
Doesn't it go all the way around the corner?
No. Well, it goes around this one.
Stops right at the middle, John.
Stops right here.
Yeah,
Right. Now go the other way. Go to the left. No, the other way.
the other way. Down to the, yeah.
Yeah, right.
It goes here. But the retaining wall that we were talking about in the hearing was on the right-hand side as we look at this photograph or this plan.
Right, but there was no retaining wall in the back.
I don't believe so.
In the first plan.
No, there was not.
How high is that wall, Steve?
Right here, I think it's just one stone, large boulders. And you can see this is 1, 2, 3 feet,
2 foot.
2 to 3 feet elevation change here. It's quite steep, actually. I walked across it here, right in front of some bushes. This way, I walked right in here, and it's quite steep. I'm glad I had boots, Arthur.
Can you go there? Can you go back to the first plan?
Sure, I think so. Let's see if I can find it. That's this plan, John?
Yeah.
Right. So there's no retaining wall there.
That's correct. That's correct.
No, that's not true. Wait a minute. Hold on, Steve. It says proposed, if you go further down, it says proposed wall, and it shows it going around the back of the pool.
Oh, yeah, yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
Right there. It goes right behind. They got rid of some of it.
Right. Good.
There's a proposed wall around the whole pool.
That's correct. There's a wall there.
Yeah, that was a cement wall, so they just put the boulders instead, which is probably better anyways.
Yeah, the boulders are at the bottom here of area A, right in here.
But they didn't go all the way, they didn't have to go all the way across, obviously. They made it work.
Right. Right.
Well, I know that Jim Burke is saying the retaining wall was slightly relocated to accommodate the existing slope and provide improved aesthetics to the pool area. I don't know what the relocation means.
Right. And neither do I, John.
So let's get that clarification at the site walk.
Yes,
Sure.
that makes sense. Now, so as not to hold this up, I am not available this weekend, and the next weekend is Christmas, and the weekend after that is New Year's. So that if there's a quorum, you can go without me on this Saturday. Otherwise, we can kick it until whatever the date is, the 8th of January. So I guess the first question is, can everyone besides myself make it this Saturday? Doesn't sound like a long site walk to me. Wendy, can you make this Saturday?
Yes, I can.
Todd, can you make Saturday?
If we do it early, I can.
All right.
Same.
Hans?
Same.
Oh. All right, so it looks like we'll have a quorum. I cannot make it this time. I'm sorry?
What time? I can do it early as well, but what time are you thinking?
You want to do it at 8 o'clock?
Yeah, that'd be
8?
great.
That's fine with me.
Wendy?
All right.
Wendy, we can do 6.
That's pretty good. Pretty good. All right, why don't we do a site walk? I will not be present, but you will have a quorum. And I think, to my mind, that's really the only issue, because as I said before, I think there's a net increase in plantings, although they rearranged it, but that's something you can take a look at. It's probably not a significant revision.
But let me ask you a question, John. We got to get a hold of the homeowner because they're not here tonight, so we just can't show up there, right?
We should.
Right.
You are correct on that, Todd.
So
So,
it's all
but
sin. I don't want to walk back there without someone saying it's okay.
Of course, but I think that
It's hunting season, Todd.
Steve, can you reach out for the homeowner? It's unfortunate they weren't present tonight, but and
Well,
just
What about
suggest
Bert?
that we are willing to continue this, even though they were not present, and it would be, I think, helpful to them as well as to us if they would invite us into their backyard on next Saturday.
What about Burke? Should he?
I don't know how to turn my phone off. Sorry, guys. Sure. I mean, that would be up to the homeowner. I don't want to, create a cost for them.
Yeah, no, I got you.
Okay.
I will see if I can make that happen, okay?
All right, good.
And I will confirm, all right? How's that?
All right, thanks. The only thing we need to make sure that's published tomorrow.
Right, exactly.
All right, fair enough. So this matter will be continued to a site walk, which will be a public meeting on Saturday morning. And the location is 196 Ridgewood Road. And the meeting will take place at 8 a.m. So those are the only 2 active items. Arthur, were you able to make any connection with 52 Hemlock Drive?
I tried, but was not successful.
All right. Well, I think the pictures, I don't think we need a site walk there, but I think we do need an applicant.
I agree.
So if you could, Steve, ask perhaps Lynn to reach out to them, or if you have time, if you could reach out to them and just put them on the agenda for next January.
Be happy to.
All right, thank you.
That would be the 11th of January, by the way, folks.
Okay.
Put it on your calendar, please.
Excuse me,
2022.
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
wouldn't it be possible just to swing by and do that one on site?
But we don't have the applicant.
If the applicant can be there on Saturday morning,
Sure.
give them that option.
Sure. And so for publication purposes, you could put that on the agenda. If and I know people want to do it early and fast, but I don't think either one of these are going to take very long. I'm just concerned that the applicant participate in the process. So if that's acceptable to everybody, I don't think it'll add much time. But if we could go there second, or rather if you could go there second, that makes sense. But that would require that we make contact Arthur. But again, Steve, if you would,
I will take care
follow
of that.
through
I
on
will.
contact.
I'm sure I have his phone number because I've spoken with him, okay, before.
Perfect. All
All
right.
right. So I will be happy to do that.
And if they can't make it, then so be it.
Right. Okay. And
Okay.
you'll get an agenda on Thursday afternoon, most likely. Okay.
Perfect.
Good.
All right. So those are the 2 agenda items, which is pretty good. But we do have a number of items on additional business. And I think, Steve, if you could lead the way on that, because there are a number of different items that I think we should address.
Yes. In fact, why don't we address 82 Cliff first, if I can find the file. Okay, you all remember 82 Cliff Road?
Yes.
Sorry, yep, very well.
Tree in the backyard and all. This was the engineered plan by Dan Armstrong, who's heading to Germany with his wife and child for a couple of years.
Wow.
She's teaching on a U.S. base. However, I went out there a week and a half ago and looked at the backyard, and evidently the Thomas Company, Thomas Landscaping, from local Milton company, had come in there and done the work, and they did a wonderful, wonderful job with it. There were erosion controls at the bottom of the slope. There was and it had been loomed and seeded, and some of the grass was growing. The tree was out of there entirely. There were 2 additional trees planted on the south side of the property and 1 clump of birch planted on the north side of the property. I just wanted to report that to everybody and ask if you wanted to take a look at it as well, since we're going to be out in the fresh air on Saturday morning.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, we've been there several times. And if the conservation agent is satisfied with the work, as he explained, I'm pleased to let him wrap it up and not have to have us go to that site unless other party or members of the Conservation Commission think that we should.
Oh, no, that makes perfect sense to me. I know I've been
I'm
there
fine with that.
a few times.
Sure.
All right, so the only, and based on Steve's representation that it was well done, we've got the 3-to-1. I know it got a little confusing because we haven't actually formalized our DBH performance standards. So and in this case, I think we utilized the 3-to-1. So the 1 tree came down and the 3 trees have been planted. And based upon the description, it was the slope pulled back, Steve.
Yes, I believe
I'm just concerned with the grade. To make sure it doesn't, there's no erosion into the river or towards the river.
Sure, the grade looked pretty good. The slope was pulled back. I didn't have my, I didn't pull the tape out because I was stepping gingerly. I didn't want to destroy the lawn, That
Okay.
it was very new. It was very new lawn, and plants were just up. It had been hydroseeded, but it was looking very good. So I can certainly go back and check with a tape measure. In fact, I'd be happy to do that and report back. How's that at the next meeting?
Yeah, you can do that, but we might be able to resolve it tonight to the extent that we have an outstanding enforcement order.
Yes.
And pursuant to the request from DEP, they've asked us not to request a notice of intent to respond to our enforcement order, but simply make it a condition of the enforcement order that certain action be taken. It appears from Steve's description that has been done. The only thing that would not prevent, but would delay removing the enforcement order would be the issue of a fine. And so I put that out there, and we've done it in other circumstances. I know this was an issue that we've been back several times. I'm not proposing a fine, but if anybody believes that's appropriate, then I think now is the appropriate time to do that. Somebody said something, but I missed it. No, I didn't hear anything. So if there is no motion for a fine, then I would suggest a motion is appropriate that the conditions of the enforcement order have been met, and that we are in a position to withdraw that enforcement order, because that enforcement order is actually filed or recorded rather, so we would need to withdraw that. Is there such a motion to do so?
Before we do that, do we need to, is it appropriate to wait to ensure that the plants have stabilized or survived if they've just been installed?
Well, we could do that under the circumstances of a notice of intent, and then a request for a certificate of compliance. In fact, we just talked about that in another issue, that the issue is whether or not it's 2 growing seasons or 2 years. But this is not a notice of intent. It's a good point, though, even though it may be outside of the performance standards that apply to a certificate of compliance. It's still a valid point. So I'd invite anybody else's comment. I don't know how long we would wait. How long have the trees been planted, Steve? Just a month or two?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, John? I could not hear very well.
Could you tell when the trees were planted?
No, I could not. There
All right.
were only three of them anyway, and they were planted well, which is unusual. If they were planted obviously by professionals, because they were planted in the correct elevation. I've seen so many things that are planted up, too high, or too low recently by the property owners themselves. So I was impressed by that alone. Doesn't take much, I suppose, huh?
Well, it's interesting because we're not within the confines of a notice of intent. So if it were a notice of intent, we would wait. The only significance to have an enforcement order recorded in the Registry of Deeds, it would prevent a sale and or refinancing. I don't know if either of those are contemplated by the homeowner, but I wouldn't want to have something that he had complied with then inhibit either a sale or a refinance. One of the things we could do is recall the enforcement order now, but we could still apply because we're not under the notice of intent regs or the certificate of compliance regs. We could go back and check it in 6 months to make sure that the trees are still growing.
Right. Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. Not a problem.
Hans, what do you think of that?
That's fine with me.
Okay. Arthur, Wendy, Todd?
I'm fine.
Likewise.
Joy, yes.
All right, good. So then is there a motion to withdraw the enforcement order on the basis of compliance with our order?
So moved. Wendy moved it, I'll second.
All
Okay,
right, good, thanks.
thanks,
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? I'm sorry, I'm going to do I've got to do an individual count. Arthur Doyle, how say you, sir? Yay or nay?
Yes.
Okay, Hans?
Yes.
Todd?
Yes.
Wendy?
Yes,
And I say yes as well, John Kiernan. So that's a unanimous withdrawal of the enforcement order. And Steve, if you would just put it in your diary to check in 6 months to make sure the trees are still growing.
Sure.
And if not, you can address it.
Ingrid is on, so you should.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Ingrid, I can't see you. I'm sorry. Out of
That's
sight,
okay.
never mind.
Can others see me?
Now I
I-
can. You
Okay.
just popped up onto the screen.
The answer was yes as well.
Oh, thank you, Ingrid. I apologize to you.
No worries.
You know what it must be? It must be when we're screen sharing, I lose track of some people.
Right, that's
Because the
correct.
screen is small, my screen is smaller.
Right.
All right, so that was unanimous, everybody in favor. All right,
And
thank you.
with-
So what else do we have for additional?
Yes. Piatelli Field. Let's go to Piatelli Field. I just want to report that I visited Piatelli Field with the DPW, rec, and some vendors. There's a plan to take this field here. Can you see where the cursor is?
Yes,
This area here and redo it into a turf field and do some drainage here. And it's about 400 feet away from anything else. This is a area that was excavated for stormwater, and it's connected down to a pipe that ends up in Pine Tree Brook. Okay, so I decided, and it's not there's not a lot of wetland veg in it as well, so it's not the jurisdictional wetland. So I told them go ahead and do the work. However, this field here, what Hans called Lower Guile Field, also has a potential for being drained. And there are already some flags out, wetland flags out along the field. And we talked about the wetland flag locations, which looked very good to me. They were done by Epsilon Company, Mike Howard, a similar gentleman to our friend Art Allen, who's a serious professional, I call him. And eventually we'll have a proposal to do some work in this field. I think they're going to have to do some cutting of this bank here because they don't have the 25-foot. Just a guess.
So,
But Steve, is it your understanding that they intend to file a notice of intent at that time?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
But I made it very clear that that's what they should file because they're so close to it. Okay. And they will be taking drainage and putting it into some culverts and taking the culverts into an already existing large culvert that also runs across the other field, this larger baseball field, and then goes into the brook as well, Pine Tree Brook. Okay, just this is an FYI. Okay.
Right. And that intermediate field has a pretty large detention basin below ground, which was put in during the construction of the high school. So we're going back to 2001 in that area right there. Correct. That's pretty big.
so
Interesting.
a
Okay.
couple of quick notes there. First of all, I have to disclose that I work very closely with Epsilon Associates on a regular basis. So they're one of my main consultants. So I just want to make sure that's known ahead of time.
Sure.
And so if I have to recuse myself, I will. Secondly, the drainage issues let me start at the beginning. That drainage swale that you mentioned, it doesn't retain anything, so it's just flow through. There is significant wetland vegetation at the base of that, especially in the herbaceous layer. So that's during the growing season. Despite the work that's been done there to expand that platform, I don't think that was ever a filing. Secondly, that discharges right to the roadway access, and that whole area floods like really bad. So, and the stormwater retention system at the upper field, I question how well that functions because that also floods.
Where is the flood of the upper field, Hans?
I'm sorry?
Where on the upper field is the flooding?
The flooding is at the base of at the toe of the slope there, and then also all along the perimeter between that baseball field that they're proposing the upgrades to and that whole area. It stays saturated, doesn't ever drain.
Okay.
Okay.
There's a batting cage type apparatus and just to the side of that. But the batting cage isn't shown on here.
Right. Let's take a look and see if I can find it on the next one.
So it's also my understanding that the Parks Department is undergoing an additional feasibility analysis on that lower field to look at whether or not that can be maybe converted into a turf field. Is that part of the discussion?
Yes, I believe so.
And so a lot of that, and this was something I think that came up at town meeting, a lot of that discussion was contingent on trying to improve the drainage system there, knowing that there are significant drainage issues. And so it just seems a little bit out of line to go ahead and proceed with drainage alteration on that upper field to add more inputs to an existing drainage problem.
how do you figure adding more inputs if indeed it's draining to this area and then it's shooting down into the brook, Hans?
It's not shooting into the brook. It's shooting down to the lower field.
Oh. Okay,
the-
well, if
and
you
then-
look, let me see, if you look at that's their proposal of taking, these are drainage lines here.
Yep.
And they're taking and putting all the water in an outfall right here and then
Yep.
dropping it right into the basin.
Yep.
Okay. So it's not going in this direction. It's going down to it on the page, which would be in the southerly direction.
Yes. Have you traced where that pipe goes?
This pipe,
Yeah.
I have some old information from Chase. It goes directly into the brook, Pine Tree Brook.
Okay.
Where's the swale?
This
You
is
said,
the
you said basin. Are we talking about the same thing?
It's
yes,
a depression, but it's not used for any kind of storage purposes. I mean, it doesn't have any kind of any type of retention features. It's just flow
that's
through.
correct. No water control structures or anything like that, elevation structures.
Or are they
That's why they're gonna do the
directing-
pipe.
Right.
But are they gonna take more water from that field? Because that's grass now, correct?
Yeah, so that's retaining some water
Yeah.
Yes.
as grass, but if they convert it to
Turf.
synthetic turf, it's going to shoot right down there. There's
That's
no
correct.
retention.
Right.
So you're going to increase the flows going down to the lower area.
Yes.
It sounds like kind of a Band-Aid approach. If they're gonna address the drainage problems in the lower field, this is gonna be adding to it. Shouldn't they be looking at this at the same time?
That's a great comment.
Yeah. Right, because the lower one is clearly jurisdictional. This one may be questionable. I heard what you said, Hans, about, the wetland plants there at the herbaceous level.
Yeah, I saw some purple loosestrife. That's all I was able to identify from the fence. I was standing up here.
You'll see bone set down in there. There's some
Really?
rushes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Could you reach back now? Are you dealing with Chase on this, or who are you dealing with, Steve?
Chase, yes.
Can you back up to the other, the other plan that shows both the upper field and the lower field, or the midfield and the lower field? Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Did he give you any indication? Are they currently working on that upper field?
This right here, oh yeah, they're ready to go. They're gonna start this very soon, once the snow goes away.
So they're just piping it out into that swale.
Yes, into this feature here, which was built after 1996, Hans, and before 2008. So it doesn't qualify as a wetland feature, wetland resource.
Was it constructed as a stormwater feature or a drainage feature?
They're one and the same, aren't they?
It depends on what the intended function is, isn't it?
Well, if it's drain, it's drain.
Yeah, it's draining. It's draining there, and then it hits a pipe, and then goes right down under the road.
Under the road or on the road?
Under it.
No, under the road. Under the
Oh,
road.
so the
not onto
pipe
the-
keeps going.
Yeah, it's under the road, and there's a large pipe right there by the bridge. That's what Chase told me the other day. And in fact, he's got some old plans that he thinks show it.
All right, so it may be producing more water, but it's directing all that water via the pipe to the brook.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Past the lower Guile Field. That's correct. Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know, how do we have jurisdiction over it?
We don't. That was my point. We do
No,
not.
we
have-
don't.
Yeah, that was my point to them. That's why I was called in to say, do we have jurisdiction? I said, nope, I don't think so. Not in my opinion.
All right,
So
and
we-
that 2008 date, it means what? Because I don't know the difference between the drainage and the stormwater.
change to the
discharge
stormwater-
definition.
to the wetland regs.
That's correct.
Did Epsilon include that area in the delineation that they did?
This area?
Yeah.
Not to my knowledge. I didn't talk to anybody about this area being delineated at all. It was
Can you
obviously
ask-
delineated down here.
Can you ask Chase or someone from Parks Department if they provided an opinion on that?
Okay. Sure.
But that's isolated anyways, isn't it?
That
Well,
would be
That
jurisdictional.
wouldn't matter to us, Todd.
say again, Hans?
So if it's isolated, if it's an isolated wetland, it'd be jurisdictional under the bylaw. But if a wetland scientist has assessed that and determined it to be non-jurisdictional, we would go with that without any, I'll take that as concurrence.
Yeah, I just looked at it and said, no, not jurisdictional.
Yeah.
I asked when it was built. It was built, after 96, before 2008. That was my decision tree on it, Hans. Okay.
All right, but can you get us some kind of a timeline, Steve, from Chase in terms of when they're going to take a look at the lower field? Because this is all interconnected, and I go back 24 years maybe to when the design of that detention under the main field that we're looking at right now.
Mhm.
And I know one of the issues then was clean out capacity. And it was it was an issue as to whether or not anyone would be able to clean it out. And if there's a drainage problem, I really would wonder whether or not it's a result of that detention basin under the field not working, not functioning.
Oh, wow. Sure, I will follow that up. Okay. Okay.
All right, good. Well, this is just additional business. It's not actually an agenda item, but it's very helpful to get this information. And if you could get more information on the plans for the lower field, that would be great.
Sure. Well, I talked to Kevin Chrism, and he said we're still looking for the money, but we're going to do the design hopefully in the next year. That's all he told me. Design
Okay.
in 2022. Construction could be 23 or after.
It's interesting that the money's there for a sudden change to a turf field.
Oh,
up top,
this
but
money is all private money.
That's all private. Yeah, exactly. Same
They-
private money that
Why is
dug
the
into a
private money?
wetland at the lower field.
They raised the money for this field here.
Yep. Yep.
No kidding. They raised the money for it privately.
As I said, the same folks that committed the wetland violation at the lower field.
Understood. Hey, completely understood.
Gotcha.
John, a question?
Yes.
Steve, I just wanted to ask if you had seen any outflow from the pipe into Pine Tree Brook yet.
I have not. No.
Okay. So we don't know the condition of that piping system, its
No,
age, whether it's been cambered, obstructions, breakage.
right, we do not. I do not, at least. I can ask Chase,
Okay,
and I will get
that
back.
might be helpful to know.
Yes, it
What do you
sure
think,
will.
Hans?
Absolutely.
That's a good point, Arthur, because what Hans said originally was that at the end of the swale is the area, Hans, correct me if I'm wrong, but did you point to that as being the area where there is flooding and water retention?
There's a storm drain at the using the map south, at the curve of the road, there's a storm drain there, and then the field just gets soaked. I mean, the field is just a mud
field.
pit.
Right.
No, the lower Guile field, but
Oh, Lower Guile.
So-
Okay.
and the water seeps all through that entire slope through there.
Sure.
And it's not really, it would seem that where that storm drain is where that pipe would connect logistically.
If it were working properly, is what you mean to say, right?
Exactly, yeah, I guess.
Sure. Okay, good. We need to understand the system much better.
Right. Well, you could at least make an inquiry as to whether or not they have ascertained whether or not that pipe to the brook is functioning,
Right.
and whether or not that would be part of their plan, because, you know, the upper drainage is going to affect the lower drainage. And if they're trying to correct the lower drainage, then they might as well integrate their systems.
Indeed. Agreed.
I'm going back and part to, that would be a normal exploration anyhow, but I was going back in part to what Hans said about water cascading down from the upper field to the lower field. And if that retention area is not being evacuated by a healthy pipeline, then it's going to overflow and just go down the hill onto that lower field.
Right. Shall we go on?
Yes.
Okay. Good news. 339 Hillside Street. Remember that water line that had to be connected out to the private 8-inch line?
Yes.
That I saw the end of that work last week. So that they have water at 339. Although they have a different source of water at 339, and this means that the 347 Hillside work can begin as soon as he files the order of conditions.
And he was just awaiting a DEP number, wasn't he?
Yes, he has the DEP number.
Okay.
Yeah, but he still needs to file his order at the registry. Okay. And then some other good news from Milton Academy. The site yard is looking good. The hillside has been planted with some trees and shrubs. I don't believe it's complete yet. I'll have a chance to talk to the consultant tomorrow morning when I go with him to take a look at a proposed project at the track shed for Milton Academy. Evidently, a tree came down and wiped out the track shed. So I will be on site at 9:30 tomorrow morning with Greg Hockmott to discuss a new project. I think Mr. Corcoran is involved with that new project as well.
And that's jurisdictional, Steve?
Oh,
Yeah.
it definitely is.
It's
Okay.
right next to the wetland.
Right next to the pond.
Okay, I couldn't mentally picture the shed,
Right.
but thanks.
Yeah, they used to store equipment in there. I don't know if they do anymore, but when I was a kid, that shed's been there for, how old am I? 100 years old?
Nice try, John.
And that's all I have for additional business.
What about the superseding order of 711 Randolph Avenue?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you very much for reminding me. I just wanted to report to everybody that has been filed by the DEP Northeast Region. And I believe I sent a copy to everyone as well when I got
Yes.
it about a week and a half ago. Just in case you wanted to discuss an appeal.
And so where did they end up with the culverts? What's the approved culvert design?
One culvert. Right. Exactly.
Ouch, ouch, ouch. Now, what about the town's appeal? That's still pending as far as I know.
The town's appeal through Superior Court?
Yes. And one of the neighbors in the town appealed the comprehensive permit. Norfolk Superior Court.
I haven't seen that, John. I don't know. Haven't seen it. Never saw any documents for the appeal either.
Okay.
If you have a copy, I'd love to have a copy.
Oh, it's a major case. I mean, it's not a copy. It's an appeal briefs.
Right. No, I'd love to see it. I'd like to read it.
It's a file. It's a big file. Town council has got it. They've represented us for the last couple of years.
Okay.
Probably 2 feet thick.
It must be
Got it.
digital though. Must be digital, right?
One might hope.
Okay. No news, at least.
All right. And we, just a brief update. I don't think we've answered yet, but we are the defendant in an appeal to the Superior Court. It's a complaint in Norfolk Superior Court against the Milton Conservation Commission for 107, 111 Highland Street. That's the Milton Hospital project. So we actually signed 2 orders. One was a ANRAD, and the other one, what was the other one?
Negative determination.
Right.
Yeah, request for determination of applicability. And really, one was for the testing, one was to approve the delineation lines. And I guess there are a couple of issues. It's a little bit hard for me to follow. It might be easier for you if you read the complaint, but there seem to be 2 avenues of complaint against us. One is that we did not consider the drainage pipe as a potential perennial stream, that the pipe was of a large enough capacity to, I don't know, if you put the water in, it could handle, I'll make it up, 10,000 gallons a minute or a day or something. But whatever it was, they said that pipe was large enough if it was filled with water to constitute a perennial stream. So there might be a perennial stream underground. And we did not sufficiently consider that when we made our ruling on the stream banks and whether or not it was an intermittent stream or a perennial stream. So we've got the intermittent perennial component, we've got the drainage pipe component that if it had water, and we had no evidence that it did carry water, that it could have, if at full capacity, could have constituted a perennial stream. And then the last point, and I don't understand this in the complaint, but it suggested that we had 2 site walks. And Steve, you can check the dates, but my memory, I'm just doing this from memory. One was like the 17th of July and one was the 23rd of July. And I don't think we were there that close together, but not all of the members that voted in September were present at both of the July inspections. It may be just a misprint in the complaint. It kind of threw me off.
I wasn't, I don't think I was at the first site walk.
I wasn't either.
Okay, so maybe they took attendance and maybe that's what it was. But we were out there a couple of times, and they're saying that there were people there that voted on it, having only been at, I guess, one of the 2 site walks. And I'm not sure.
There were site notes provided, correct?
Yes.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Can I sign an affidavit similar to what was done for 711 Randolph Ave?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You can do that because we don't have a recording. We're out in the field, so we don't have a recording to go back and listen to. But the only thing you could do is to review the site notes.
So what they're saying, John, is every storm drain going down every road could be a perennial, could be a intermittent stream too.
That's the way I read the complaint, but I'm sure they'd say, no, John, you misunderstand. Perhaps I did, but otherwise I'm not exactly sure what the problem was, because you're not saying that we identified, hydric soils or foliage inappropriately, and we used top of bank for the channeled stream. So I'm not exactly sure, other than the perennial versus the intermittent, where we went afoul of the regulations.
And what did DEP say?
Well, they haven't said anything. I guess they have an appeal to the DEP as well. But this is under the town bylaw. They have to file suit in the Superior Court against the Conservation Commission, which they have done. That is an appropriate technique. DEP has to go to an administrative hearing. The town bylaw has to go to the Superior Court. So they did it simultaneously. So DEP hasn't done a ruling. I think they've gone out. Steve, did you accompany the state? They went out and looked at it within the last month, I thought.
Yes. And I believe I reported it back to everyone.
Say again, Steve?
I believe I reported it back to everyone as well in an email.
Yes, you did.
All right, so this is just informational. There's nothing to do. There's nothing to vote on. There's really nothing before us other than keeping track of the information of where things are.
It would be good, however, if Hans and Todd could sign the affidavit after they read the notes.
I have no problem with that, Steve.
Sure.
All right, you should do it anyway and file it, but stay in touch with, or maybe if you could send it back to Steve or to me, I could get it to Kevin Freytag. He may say you're supposed to do that before the vote, so it might be, the cow is already out of the barn kind of a situation. But notwithstanding that, I think it's a good idea to do it anyway, to read those notes. All right?
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you follow through on that, and we'll leave it to town council as to whether or not that makes a difference or not.
Steve, there is language in the Wetlands Protection Act regarding perennial streams or streams and daylighting of pipes. So if a stream is partially within a pipe, it can be still considered a stream, but there's a distance associated with that, correct?
Yes, the distance is 200 feet.
Is that what they're trying to assert there?
Maybe they're trying to overcome that. We don't know the size of the pipe either underground, do we? I mean, we don't have that fact.
I think they had some estimates of the pipe size. Remember where it was.
They kept saying 10. They kept saying 10-inch pipe.
Right, yeah, they just calculated what could a 10-inch pipe carry, and it would be a very large volume of water. And they said if it were filled with water, that would it was sufficient to constitute a perennial stream. Now, I don't know if they're reverse engineering from the watershed analysis, the stream stats. I don't know.
Was there any indication of a stream being present? I mean, was it?
Well, yes, there was, and that's what we saw. But they said that there were other pipes that, because it was old farmland, there were drain pipes underneath there. You remember when we started from the Highland Street side and we walked and we were looking to see whether or not there was any kind of a sheen in the water, and I think everybody there thought it was, whatever the iron and the natural iron in the water was. It's a creates.
Well, John, let them prove all this stuff.
Well, it kind of puts it back on us because now it's being appealed.
Well, it gets back on us, but it's not. They're saying all this, but they have to prove it.
Yeah, we had no evidence that the pipes were
exactly.
The pipes were there, and if they were there, that they were filled with water.
And I should add that when we were out there, the gentleman who came from DEP, the leaves were off at the time, and we walked through the brush over toward the street next to the driveway to the Bacardi home.
Yes.
And he found another outfall on that side. And I believe that somebody had shown me a map of a stream, a 1970s map, I believe. It was Doug Henry. I did ask him to send it to me, and I have not gotten it yet, so I'm going to have to get back to him. Doug Henry, the counsel for the Bacarders, showed me a map that had a stream going down that's parallel to Highland Street,
Right.
very close to Highland Street. And it was a 1970 map. Whether he created it or not, I can't tell. I don't know, But he did show me something in the field.
The engineers for the hospital, they did the study, they did the calculations of runoff.
Right.
Yes.
So
right. Yes, they sure did.
Let Bacardi prove them wrong.
Right.
But that's exactly what they're trying to do. And in the complaint, they're saying we had either insufficient information to make the ruling that we did, or that we inaccurately delineated the resource area.
Right.
And we operated on the data that we had,
Correct.
I believe correctly. And so it's up to them at the appellate level to say, no, we were wrong.
Right.
It's just, at this point, it's kind of out of our hands.
Yeah,
DEP is involved, so they'll make their own ruling on the administrative appeal under the State Wetlands Protection Act and under the town bylaw. The Superior Court will make its ruling. We've
And
been
the
there before, and then this is just normal course for an
Sure.
appeal.
The DEP staff person, I believe, was Tyler Ferrick or Ferris. I know his name, first name was Tyler.
Okay, I don't
Yeah.
know the person.
I didn't know him either. He was very relatively new to DEP,
Okay,
just FYI.
all right. That's it on our agenda for additional business. Anybody have anything else? All right, so you folks are going to get together on Saturday. I won't be there, but you start at 8 o'clock, 196 Ridgewood Road.
And
Go
maybe
ahead.
8:30 at 52 Hemlock, is that right? Everybody?
Yes,
Okay,
you're gonna get back to us, Steve, to make sure everybody's gonna let us in and what we can do, right?
yes, absolutely. Hopefully
Okay.
by Thursday night or so, okay? So you'll
All
have
right,
some good warning, all right?
all
that's
right.
great. Is there a
Great.
motion to adjourn? Somebody? Todd, you're always got
What?
motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, is there a second?
I didn't hear
All
you.
right, thank you, Ingrid. All right, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you all very much. All right. Bye
Good
now.
night, Paul.
Good night.